How's it going, everybody? Adrian Simple here for the Gaming Observer Podcast. It is May the 12th, 2020, and as always, I'm joined by my esteemed co-host, Kato Sepp. Kato, hello, and how are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
I am just excellent. For everybody listening, you can always find timestamps to our discussions here today in the description below, either the YouTube channel or the podcast host that you're listening on. We have a fairly, it seems to be the running theme here. There's not a lot of news week to week, but we've got, I would say, 3 major stories that we want to go over, and then we have some miscellaneous things if we have time at the end. And I guess I think the majority of today is going to be spent on the Inside Xbox event from last week. We're just going to kind of take a look at the event overall. I think there's a lot of discussion that can happen there, but also the individual games that were showed off. So, kind of just starting things off, what was your first impression after coming out of this event?
There's a huge lack of gameplay. I can tell you that. I mean, jumping right in there, like, it was frustrating to me that they said that there was going to be significant amounts of gameplay, specifically with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but I mean, they kind of said that for everything, and it wasn't. There was a whole lot of cinematics. I can think of 2 games that had any gameplay at all, and it was very brief. So there was that. That said, you know, it looked gorgeous. Some of these games look really cool, and I'm very excited for it. I just think as a demo, it maybe wasn't the best. Games looked pretty great.
Yeah, and I think, you know, they mentioned this in, like, a lot of people seem to have that general sentiment that, you know, maybe they were a little upset that they said, hey, gameplay, and there wasn't really gameplay. And they did respond to that saying, like, hey, we did set the wrong expectations. We're sorry about that. We're going to try and learn from that. And I think that's a good thing to do. But, you know, also, like, I think we can both agree that, you know, these events that they did aren't necessarily a bad thing. It gets you excited. It gets these things on your radar. But they shouldn't, in advance, be saying, hey, gameplay debut of Valhalla, and it's just another cinematic.
Yeah, it's not something I'm going to hold a grudge over, and it's certainly not something where I'm like, nope, no longer getting a Series X. But, yeah, it just was an expectations thing that they probably could have been a little clearer about. You know, so whatever. That's life.
Right before we see anybody talking to us, they kick it off with a game right off the bat. And very, very striking game. I think it makes sense why they started with this, and certainly it was one of the few that actually showed gameplay. It's called Bright Memory Infinite. This isn't a brand new game. It is in a way. The initial game came out, it was called Bright Memory, and it was supposed to be episodic. And it's a one-man developer, and he was just gonna, you know, he kind of had to put something out there, and then he was gonna work on it more as time went on. Well, turns out that the game got really popular, and a lot of people really loved it, and that gave him the resources to then get funding from other people, probably Xbox, and then now kind of re-release that, as well as all the other content that he wanted to make under one banner, called Bright Memory Infinite. You look at the video, and it's like, the graphics are strong, like you can't even believe it's from one person. The fighting is melee and shooting, and it's high action, very, very cool. I've never seen this before. I was surprised that I had never seen it before, especially considering only one person did it. So I'll be interested to see, you know, like, I didn't know anything about it before, so I'm wondering if it's going to be a little more on the radar moving forward.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere for me, too. I didn't know that it was a thing before this. And yeah, the graphics were unbelievable for one person. That all I can think is, I really hope, like, NoClip or someone does a video series on this guy, because I don't understand how one person made this. It's incredible. Gameplay, yeah, it was like it seems like a first-person shooter. It has vehicles that you can drive around in, so it looked pretty cool. I couldn't tell if there was a whole lot else. I mean, you know, that's perfectly fine for a game, but I couldn't tell if there was more to the game than that, and I don't know enough about it.
One of the interesting things that they showed off a lot in that clip was the use of, like, a grappling hook. There was a lot of, like, uppercuts, so you pull the guy in with your grappling hook and push him away and go traverse the world with it and everything. And, like, that was kind of a prime feature of that trailer. I don't know if, again, like, we don't know if it's in the gameplay as prominently, but I think it was a cool thing to show off. I thought the movement was a little clunky, and I don't know if that replicates in the game. But certainly, like, the rest of it looked like something worth keeping your eye on, especially if you're a fan of that high-action shooter.
Yeah, it looked like any AAA shooter. Like, it was that level of quality. That's apparently one dude, so... Yeah, I don't know if he's got, like, a team of contract artists or something, but it looked great.
Yeah, for sure. And the gameplay was almost... it kind of reminds you of, like, a Devil May Cry. Like, not as fast and not as much going on, but it's like a very fast action, like, constantly, comboing or whatever it is, chaining together actions.
I was thinking of Bulletstorm, I think is what it was called, by People Can Fly, which had a lot of that too, where you use not really a grappling hook, but something to like grab people, very Scorpion, Mortal Kombat-esque, fling people around. It didn't look to that extreme, and it certainly didn't have the same tone as Bulletstorm, but that use of the hook to grab people kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah, for sure. I believe the game is going to be coming out before the end of the year, or at least in early access of some kind. I don't know if it's a full release. I can't remember exactly. Anyway, it's coming out soon, relatively, and it is... If you have the first game, if you own the first game, then it'll automatically upgrade you, at least on Steam, to Bright Memory Infinite, and the game itself is actually pretty cheap on Steam. So if you are interested in what you see there, then you can try it out with the first game, and then you'll get a free upgrade. Mm-hmm. Moving on, the next game that they showed off in the event was Dirt 5, and that was the announcement of the new racing game. Looked like every other racing game commercial that you've seen before, and even the trailer that says, it's titled 5 Features That Make Dirt 5 More Than an Off-Road Racer. Every single header is just like, hey, we have a vibe and style and a career mode. Not very unique. So, I don't think there's anything special necessarily about this one.
Yeah, it looked pretty. It had some really cool cars. I imagine if you're into the Dirt franchise, it seemed good. Yeah. I mean, racing games are always one of those things. Whenever there's a new console, they always shove racing games out there because the gameplay is relatively simplistic. Like, it's something that, they can pump out pretty quickly, and they are always graphical showcases. So I would expect we're going to see more racing games before this whole lead up to the Series X and PlayStation 5. I'd be very surprised if we don't see a new Forza in the near future. It seemed like one of those. If you've been through a console launch before, it was one of those trailers.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. When I first got my Xbox One, I got Forza of some kind, and I just remember being like, that was the game where it's like, I don't even like any racing games at all, but when I saw that game, I was like, this is looking good. So, they can put a lot of time into making it look great, because the racing game formula doesn't change a tremendous amount.
Yeah, you change the physics system around, you add some new modes, but it's, racing is racing. It's kind of like sports games, There's only so much you can change and add.
Yeah, for sure.
But they always look great.
The next game that they showed off is a game called Scorn. They didn't show much. It was a fairly short trailer, and it was a lot of panning camera action of like architecture and just creepy things, haunting music. Not a lot going on, but if you're familiar with the game, which you might be, it was originally kickstarted in 2017. And I don't know if you, Kato-Sepp, I don't know if you've seen it before, but it's very creepy.
Yeah, it actually had a failed Kickstarter in 2014 before the 2017 one was a success. So it's been in development for a long time. And if you follow the game, the team is famously close-lipped. They have made, over the course of those 3 years since their 2017 Kickstarter, they've made 18 updates on their Kickstarter. So they don't talk about it very often. They don't post things very often. And for what it's worth, if you have followed this game a little bit in the past, it was announced as being episodic. It was originally going to be a part 1 Scorn thing, and they have since received funding, so this is going to be a full game that releases on the Series X. It's not going to be an episodic part thing. And the graphic style is very H.R. Giger. That's apparently one of their major influences. and it definitely looked like that. It kind of looked like Alien mixed with Attack on Titan to me. I got very Titan vibes from these figures that didn't have any skin.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I think for sure I can get down with that. If you're a horror game fan, then you should definitely take a look at this. It is a first-person horror adventure game, is what they call it on the Xbox blog. And like you mentioned, the last update that they put out was right when the Xbox event happened, and they were basically like, "Yeah, we know we haven't posted in 6 months, but listen, the finish line is coming up. It's getting there. You're gonna get the game in your hands. Just hang in tight for a little bit longer, and you're gonna have a much more fleshed out experience than what you were originally gonna get when you backed this on Kickstarter."
Yeah. So we'll see. It's something that there have been a few people who have been looking forward to this for a long time. So, it's great. And it looked great. All of these games looked great. That's maybe just something I should get out of the way right now. I don't think there was a single one that didn't look great. So.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the, something I didn't mention at the beginning is that a lot of these games were very dark, very gritty and a lot of horror and stuff like that. So Dirt 5 was one of the ones that wasn't, and we're going to get to more in a bit. But the next game they showed off here is called Chorus, and this is a new space aerial combat game. And which, by the way, the logo, the U in Chorus is actually a V. For the titling that they use, and I was very confused. I was calling it Chorves for a while until I saw the articles.
I did the same thing. Chorves? I don't get it. Yeah, and then realized it was like Latin lettering, so V's are used, but...
and so this is, if you're like an old school, there's a lot of... I would say this is not a common genre that you see anymore, but certainly in the 16-bit era, this was common like crazy, the aerial space shooter. So I think a lot of people are going to be excited for that, especially with all the new graphics that you can do with that sort of thing. And there's a lot more at play, but let's start here. What's your experience with the genre, and do you see, have you heard of this? And then, subsequently, are you going to be looking into it more?
I did not hear about it before. I'm not sure if they announced it or talked about it before, but it was actually going out of this whole... I'm calling it a press conference. I don't know what it was. A demonstration, presentation, whatever.
Showcase.
Showcase. There you go. Coming out of this showcase, Chorus was actually what I was most looking forward to, more than anything else. Because like you said, it's not a genre that you see very often anymore. The last I can really think of that stood out that wasn't like a musical kind of cerebral event was the Crimson Dragon, that was an Xbox One launch title. It's been a while. It's been a long while. And I can't quite tell exactly what kind of a game this is, if it's supposed to be more of a like shoot 'em up, or if it's going to be more like a Descent style, like adventure piloting. And no matter what it is, I'm very excited for another plane combat, spaceship combat, because we just don't see them very often.
Yeah, what it says on the Xbox blog here is that Chorus balances the scale and spectacle of space exploration with frenetic, fast-paced action. So it might be a mix of both based on just what they're advertising. But certainly, like, the gameplay that they showed off really seemed to be like the modern-day version of that genre. And I think there's a big opportunity there. I think there's a lot of gamers who are going to want to revisit that thing that they've loved for, when they were younger or whatever it is. Obviously, there's a lot of opportunity with people who have either never played it or haven't played it in a long time. So I think it might fill in this kind of void that's been there, that's there now, kind of in the way that Stardew Valley did, right? Like Stardew Valley came in when there was no other farming sims and dominated. And if Chorus can pull this off, if it's a great game and people like it, like, I don't see why, I think it might have a similar effect. Other people might want to, replicate.
Yeah, or it's going to go the way of Crimson Dragon or whatever it was called, and no one's going to remember that it existed.
Yes, absolutely.
We will certainly see. But either way, it probably won't be remembered under that name. So...
What do you mean?
I don't know if you want to get into that.
Oh, yeah. Oh. Okay. So this was also an interesting reveal, because there was previously a game announced also called Chorus sometime late last year. That game, very different. It was a musical narrative adventure created by the narrative designer of Dragon Age. and or I think he might have been the whole designer. I don't know exactly, but
he was the writer.
Oh, the writer. There you go. Yeah. So, very narrative-driven game. It was like a musical thing, very interesting, very unique, and they called it Chorus because it's musical-based. And now we have another game that's coming out this year called Chorus. It'll be an interesting little conflict there.
One of them's gonna change their name. Like, there's no
so?
way. Oh yeah. I mean, they have tweeted the Dragon Age writers team. I forget their studio name, but
Summerfall Studios.
Summerfall Studios. They have tweeted that they are, quote unquote, looking into the situation. So, yeah, there's no way these two games are going to come out at the same time with the same name. My
understanding as well is that, so Deep Silver is behind Chorus, the space shooter. From an indie studio making a musical narrative-driven game, I have a feeling they're not going to win that fight.
We'll see. I mean, it depends on if somebody's actually trademarked the name or... Yeah, I mean, of the two, if it comes down to a legal battle, they're probably going to want to change it, the Chorus, the musical adventure folks. We'll see. And hopefully it just winds up being that. Somebody's like, you know what, I'm just stepping back, changing the name.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also worth noting, like, I think the sizes of these games are also going to be dramatically different. Chorus, a musical, is not going to, I don't think, have the same splash on the Xbox Series X the space aerial combat is going to have. So, it might come down to a legal battle, and in that case, obviously, that's out of speculation that, we determine what happens. But I don't think in the practical, like... Even if they do both launch with the same name, I don't even necessarily know that they're going to be impacted all that much.
It's going to be less for fans. Like, yes, they're not competing really with each other. It's only going to be, crazy fans like us that are really even going to care. But they're close enough. Trademarks tend to go for entertainment, like digital entertainment. They're not going to make genre distinctions. So if either of them tries to trademark the name, it's going to be a problem. Somebody's going to have to give on that. I just don't see it happening. And I hope so, just so that we can have a conversation a year from now and not be like, Chorus, the musical game, not the space shooter, and just make that distinction every single time. Because that'd be frustrating.
They could also, go the Outer Wilds route and then, just change one of the words slightly. Well, I guess the only word, just a little bit slightly, just to confuse everybody. I especially liked when the writer, or one of the people who worked on Outer Wilds, was hired by the developer of Outer Worlds, and that article was just fun to read.
One of these games is going to be Choruses.
Yeah, there you go. Following Chorus, we had Madden 21. I don't think there's anything to mention there. It's another football commercial. Yeah, football. It showed the original. That was pretty cool. That's true.
They did a throwback ad, but it didn't show anything really from the new one.
And actually, that was a really funny thing to happen because they showed actual gameplay for all of the other games, and then they cut to the newest game, and it was all cinematics, making it look way cooler than it actually probably is going to be.
Yeah. It was a football game ad. I mean, what are they going to show, honestly? What do they ever show? Yeah. It's football. You see a guy, throwing the football down in the end zone, and very dramatic touchdown. It was a football ad.
Yeah. And then, actually, immediately following Madden, they showed off a... basically, every company that is currently working with Xbox... and it zoomed out, and there was 200 company logos on the screen. It was a sight to behold. Nothing to go out of your way for, but just if you saw that, my eyes popped out of my skull a little bit, just that they put all logos on at the same time.
I mean, I saw Larian's logo, which made me really happy, because they've said Baldur's Gate 3 is not coming to the new consoles. Oh. So to see their name up there was very interesting.
There you go.
I mean, whether they backtrack on that, or if they're... working on Divinity Original Sin 3, which would be very nice.
We'll see about that one.
I'm a fan of Larian, so,
and then they showed off a new cinematic for Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. Again, nothing we haven't really... I think it was a new cinematic, but no new information, just something to get you hyped.
I legitimately thought for a moment that that character they show in the cinematic was Jesse Eisenberg, because he looked so much like his Lex Luthor from Batman vs Superman. And I'm like, oh, Jesse Eisenberg's gonna be in this game. No, he's not. He has nothing to do with this project. Yeah. That person just super looks like him.
Yeah.
But it looked cool. It did have some gameplay, actually. They showed some jumping around. Not very much, but they show you, like, leaping from building to building.
And we've seen that in previous cinematics. Really cool.
Right. It wasn't anything super new. But it was pretty. It was cool. I don't know. That first scene, he's got, like, people as puppets, and it was pretty creepy looking. Yeah, he's got marionette people. It looked very Joker-esque. I'm looking forward to that game.
The next game that they showed off was probably my standout of the whole show. It was called Call of the Sea. It was probably, other than Madden and the racing game, this was probably like the most positive thing of the whole show.
Very colorful.
And even then, like, the story it's set in the 1930s, and it's a lady whose husband goes missing, and she goes on an adventure to go find her. So even the narrative is a little grim, but either way, if you look at the graphics, like, it's very, very beautiful. It's set on an island in the middle of nowhere. It does show off some more supernatural elements as well. It gets a little creepy vibes, kind of like Subnautica I got from that. Fairly brief, but I'm interested in what they're going to come out with. It's going to be like a first-person adventure.
Yeah, that should be cool. I heard some puzzles, there's games like Riven or Abduction that have come out. I'm not sure if this is going to be kind of like that, where it's a kind of puzzle game, but you're in an open environment and all the puzzles are actually environmental puzzles. So you feel like it's a very natural progression going forward. If it is one of those games, I'm super for that. I would love another one of those. I couldn't quite tell if that's what they were going for, though.
I really hope it is that. Like, I think the genre of, like, Myst and the Talos Principle and The Witness, like, these games that are meant to just roam around and solve puzzles, I think there's a lot of opportunity there that hasn't been approached yet. And if that's what this is, then I'm all for it. I think there's a lot of ways you can go in that genre.
If it can even be half as good as The Witness, it is a must-buy.
Yeah. But if it's not that as well, like I said, the story looked very interesting, and hopefully something good comes out of it. And personally, like, I would say if there's anything that you check out in this show, I would probably say check out Chorus, but also I think Call of the Sea was pretty cool.
Yeah.
The next game that they showed off was called The Ascent from Neon Giant. This is a co-op isometric shooter. Is that the best way to put it? And cyberpunk themed?
Yeah, it looked a twin stick. I don't know if it actually functions that way, but that was how I described it, as twin stick shooter looking thing. Yeah, it looked cool.
Pretty typical story. It focuses on, I guess a typical cyberpunk story, if you will. It focuses on class structure and the metropolitan city, and it almost looked like aliens were invading, which was, I don't know if that was actually part of the story, but something was freaky was going on there. It kind of reminded me of, like, the twin stick, the gameplay that they showed off, and it's meant to be played either solo or with friends as well, so it might be, like, horde based as well.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it looked cool. I don't know if there was anything that looked incredibly stand out, but it looked fun. I don't know, if you like twin stick shooters, I mean, it can always use more of those, I guess.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this with another game coming up, but I think these games that are meant to be played, like, it really did look like it's meant to be played with your friends, and I think any games that are like that, it's like, you're gonna have a good time no matter what game you're playing with your friends, and if it's a game that's designed for that, I think it's great.
Yeah, I would agree. Anytime you see a game tout that it's co-op in the trailer, that's a pretty good sign that you're gonna want to play this multiplayer.
Yeah. The next one is our first peek at the newest horror game from Bloober Team. They did Layers of Fear and Observation and Blair Witch. So they've kind of carved out their own niche. Now they've come out with a game called The Medium, or they are coming out with a game. And this trailer was interesting. It felt like, obviously it was very creepy and there was weird things going on, but at some point in the middle, like some weird rock music came on and it did not fit the theme of it. To me personally, it didn't feel like that's what should have been playing.
Yeah, at first it felt like The Exorcist, and then it suddenly switched to like Alan Wake in tone. So Alan Wake was fantastic, so maybe they've got their tone down and it's just very abnormal. Yeah, it was weird. And Bluebird has been very, at least in my opinion, very hit or miss. Layers of Fear was pretty good. Observer was very good. And Blair Witch was super not good. So, who knows? They've been all over the board. It looked cool. I mean, seeing their take on, like, Exorcist ideas, because it seemed like it was about being able to speak with the dead and that... kind of line between living and dead and how that's going to impact the main character, and there's apparently mysteries to solve using those abilities.
Yeah, so the only game that I've played from them is Blair Witch, but I've been meaning to play Observer just because it kind of matches the brand name, and I want to be able to say that I've done that, but also horror games aren't really my thing, so I don't know if, there's only so much I can do when I begin to play those games, but yeah, I don't know, like, the trailer seemed interesting.
Yeah, I think Observer's their best one.
Yeah.
And Layers of Fear, I've heard people who love it and people who hate it. I thought it was pretty 7 out of 10 for me personally. I'm fine with them experimenting. It just means I don't know if this is necessarily going to be the one that takes off for them and they really start to figure out their formula or their style, their voice.
Yeah, they
go either way.
The big selling point for this one was that it's the composer who composed the original Silent Hill.
Right.
I did just complain about the music at the very beginning. I'm sure the music's going to be great. It's just that whatever it was about that video, it seemed a little off. But anyway, if you're into horror games, check out Scorn, check out The Medium. There's a lot for you here.
Yeah, they did say Silent Hill 2 was their biggest influence. They mentioned Silent Hill 2 numerous times during the showcase, because they actually did a little bit where they were talking to him. The music will be good. That guy certainly did not compose that rock music in the middle. Hopefully he'll have a little more say over the game itself.
The next game that they showed off is the newest game from the developers of Tales. It's called Scarlet Nexus, and I'm going to read you my notes as I was watching this trailer, okay?
I'm ready for it.
Bullet point, cel-shaded. Next bullet point, oh no, wait, it's anime. And then invincible flower monsters called the Others. Anime man can now kill flower monsters who were supposed to be invincible. And then evil anime girl arrives. So, if that doesn't sum up this game, I don't know what will.
Yeah, what else is there even to say? I mean, that's it. There you go.
The game did look like a lot of fun. It looked really wacky. And I think, if you've played Tales or if you're familiar with this genre of game, it's not going to be surprising to you, but I don't know, it looked like fun.
I mean, it didn't really look like it played like Tales. Do we know it's an RPG? It looked more like an action game to me.
It is called an action RPG.
Oh, it is an action RPG. I was almost wondering if they're going for like the Code Vein kind of style, but maybe it sounds like it's a little faster than that.
Here we go. It's got a bit of the anime apocalypse aesthetic that drove Code Vein, and seeing the Tales developers move on to a whole new concept is exciting enough on its own. So so they are inspired by it.
So there you go.
Do you have? I'm not familiar with the genre at all. So if you have anything to mention, then feel free.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, Tales, I have kind of this love-hate relationship with the Tales games. They're fantastic games, but they've done the same game for the last, 20 years. So some of those are great. If this means we're going to get like a Scarlet Nexus 20 here in 40 years, like, great. This first one might be really good. I don't know. I don't really know what to say about it other than what your notes said. It looked very weird. It looked very anime.
Yeah.
And if you're into that, you probably already know if you're into that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's Scarlet Nexus. Check it out if you're interested. The next game is... This one caught me by surprise a little bit. It's called Second Extinction. And this is a squad-based, horde-based raptor shooter. It looked like Left 4 Dead with dinosaurs. And I don't think anybody's going to complain about that.
No, nothing wrong with that at all. Let's shoot some dinos.
It gave a lot of vibes of like, kind of like the other game with the co-op shooter, The Ascent. Like it gave off this vibe of like, hey, hop into a game and have fun with your friends and just go kill some dinos. Like it didn't seem all that in depth, but certainly it should. I imagine it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it seemed a lot lighter in tone. It had kind of that ridiculous 80s movie of, I imagine that they're going to give some absolutely insane sounding explanation as to why there's dinosaurs around, and then you just shoot them all. I thought The Ascent looked a little darker in tone, but yeah, hopefully it's going to be... the Second Extinction did not look like it's taken itself seriously at all, so yeah, I imagine Left 4 Dead, I think, was the best comparison that I could find.
In the follow-up articles here, they're talking about how Second Extinction, they are planning for it to be like a living game. They directly are inspired by Destiny 2. So this idea that you're going to play the game and then you're going to have lots to do over the course of a long time with it. So, Left 4 Dead, that was an infinitely replayable game. In this case, they, I guess, want to just support it for a longer period of time. Seems fun. And then after that, they didn't finish it. So they finished. They had like a lot of things. They had one thing at the beginning, somebody talking, a whole bunch of things, and then somebody talking, and then we get to the end. So right before we get to the second person talking, they showed off the newest entry. I don't know if this is like mainline series. Obviously, it's not numbered, but this is Yakuza Like a Dragon, which is. Yeah. But I've seen also articles calling it Yakuza 7 Like a Dragon. So I don't know if it's that.
So it is the next mainline entry. The reason why it doesn't have a number is because the first 6 plus 0 were all about the same character. It was all about the same person. And Yakuza 6 was the game when they finally end his storyline. So this is the next mainline entry. They're not calling it Yakuza 7 because they want to make that distinction between the previous... actually 7 games plus 0 and this new one. This is like not a reboot, but like a new saga, and it looked interesting to me because the plot line actually seemed very similar to the first Yakuza, which also has the storyline of a guy who takes the fall for a crime he didn't actually commit, but he does it for his family, thinking he's going to come out of prison and be received well and given high honors, and actually comes out and everyone's either forgotten him or wants him dead to protect what's been going on. It seems like this new one is going to have that same premise, and I don't know if that's intentional, if they're trying to have that throwback but with a new character. I don't know. But the main difference that they've talked about, and we didn't really get a chance to see it in this trailer, but the main difference that the game is going to have is it's actually going to be a like turn-based battle system. Whereas all the other Yakuza games were real-time combat, this one is not going to be that. It's going to have a turn-based like RPG system. And yeah, we didn't get a look at that yet. I know that's what a lot of Yakuza fans are talking about with this game. Hopefully we'll get a chance to see that soon, because that's going to be a major change for the franchise. We'll see if it winds up being good or bad.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're into the Yakuza franchise, then they had a whole bunch of story stuff in that trailer, and they gave it a good overview. Yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with the franchise. It's a blessing that you're on this show to fill in all of the gaps, because my knowledge of this stuff is bad. I'm good at facilitating the navigating the whole show, and then you can fill in with your encyclopedic brain of video games.
The series was a lot of fun. It seemed more goofy, or it seemed like it was keeping up, I guess, the tone of Yakuza games, where we have this serious storyline, but we're also kind of ridiculous. So
that's good. So yeah, then they closed out the show, and they reiterated in their final speech that we are going to be seeing the gameplay debut of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And actually, they did say gameplay trailer. It wasn't, gameplay anything else. But so they cut to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and it is another cinematic, except instead of it being pre-rendered, it is in-engine. It is not gameplay. So a lot of people were really upset about that, and the Ubisoft team came out and they were like, just be patient. We have a long marketing, streak ahead of us. We got time, for you to see the game. But certainly I think them saying, like, tune into our show and, kind of carrot on a stick and then not delivering. It was upsetting for a lot of people, but ultimately it doesn't matter. Yeah. We saw more of the game, but, that's all it really was. We didn't really get much more insight into it.
No, I don't think there was any gameplay at all. Like, some of the trailers we saw before had little sprinklings of it, like Vampire the Masquerade had him jumping from rooftop to rooftop. I don't think Valhalla had any gameplay at all. Did it?
When it's rendered in engine, when it's rendered in engine like that, you can assume that maybe some of the animations are gonna be in like they are in the game, or certain ways of killing the enemy or something. But like in terms of actual, just like here's what the game is gonna look like, there was none of that.
Yeah. Footage from the game is not the same thing as gameplay footage. Yeah. So it was disappointing, but yeah, we did get to see some more Viking stuff. It kind of just set the tone, I think, for the story of the game, and kind of the way it was going to go about things. There was some of that, like, Nordic Viking culture. It seemed more about that.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you're following the game closely, then we're certainly going to see more for the Ubisoft Forward event, which is coming July 12th, I believe, in 2 months. And that's going to be the Ubisoft publisher equivalent of the Inside Xbox show that we just saw. And we're going to have a lot of that in this coming summer. But certainly, I imagine we're going to see actual gameplay by that point.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So that's all for the Inside Xbox event. I think I can certainly sum it up by saying, there was a lot of cool things that happened and, put a lot of games on our radars. And if you're interested in certain genres, certainly there's many opportunities for you there to really sink your teeth into something specific that you love. But in terms of the promises that they made and the advertising that they made, hopefully they learn from it and hopefully it's just a little bit more clear moving forward.
Yeah. And there was, I think it's worth mentioning, there was a lot of emphasis placed on the smart delivery system that they've talked about. Basically, the idea is that if you buy the game on the Xbox One, you will automatically have that game on the Series X when that comes out, as long as it's available. It will give you whatever version for whatever console you're using, which I think is something, they've been pushing it pretty hard. I feel like most gaming outlets and stuff haven't really given that a lot of thought, but it is really a cool system because every time there's that console launch, you have this awkward period where games come out for the older console and the new console. And I don't know if you've been in the same boat. I know there's definitely been times where I'm like, I really want this game, but I don't have the new console yet. But I'm not going to buy the game for the older console because I feel like I'm getting a crippled version. And I don't want to buy that and then have to buy the newer version that's better.
And then by the time you buy the new console, that game is already out of date and you probably don't want it anymore.
Right, and I wind up just missing like this whole launch window period of games unless something's exclusive. And I think this is going to do a lot for that. It's not a system that we're probably going to use for years and years and years. Probably after the first year of the Series X, you're probably never going to use it again. But it's really cool that they're offering that transition. So I think it's something that's maybe not gotten the emphasis from the fan base that it maybe should have, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, the Xbox right now is all about being as frictionless as possible and
right.
Like get into our ecosystem, play our games however you need to make that happen. And, one of those ways is, hey, we have a new $500 machine coming out. If you can't afford that, then here's a way that you can safely play your games without having to worry about the future. And I think that approach in general is really good for us as gamers and as players. And, certainly it's I think even a wise business decision because it, I don't want to say it guarantees an income, but I think you're more likely to buy a game that you are safe for in the future than you are to double dip on a game, with the exception being like GTA 5, right? So I think it's really smart that they did that. And it's also worth noting, not applying to every single game that was showed at the show today. It applies to all Xbox properties, so all like Xbox Studios games. But in terms of their third-party developers, they're kind of just encouraging them to do that, and some of them are taking advantage of it.
Yeah, and some of the games they talked about in this showcase aren't coming out on Xbox One. Like Scorn is one, for example, that is going to be a Series X exclusive, at least on consoles. It's also coming to PC. But I think most of them they said that are coming out on the Xbox One and Series X were compatible with that. I know Assassin's Creed they said absolutely will. I think Yakuza also said they were going to, but I could be wrong on that. There were a few they mentioned in the showcase are going to have that smart delivery system.
So if you're concerned about a particular... Yeah, if you're concerned about a particular game, then give it a look for yourself. Also, a number of these games are going to be available on the Xbox Game Pass. So if you are not wanting to purchase something full-fledged, but perhaps try it out, then certainly check out the Game Pass. And if you haven't checked out the Game Pass by now, then you absolutely need to. I'm talking about it all the time on the daily updates. They don't sponsor this show, but they absolutely should, because they have a really good service there.
Yeah, why is Microsoft not paying us? Jeez.
Yeah, what the heck?
Madden 21 was another one they said absolutely would have that. So that's pretty cool, since Madden 21 is actually coming out in like June or July.
Right.
So if you have a Xbox One, don't feel like you can't buy it until you get the Series X. They said you will get that Series X version when it comes out.
So that's the Inside Xbox event. They're going to run one of those, I believe, every single month until the console comes out, so you can look forward to that. And next month, they're showing off all of their first-party properties. I don't know if it's next month or the month after, but either way, they're having some kind of event every month, so you can take a look.
I think they said June, okay. But I think it might be near the end of June. Could be wrong on that. We'll look it up.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on, we're going to take a look at a couple of companies' financials here, because there's some things to dig into, but the first one I want to look at is Nintendo. They had their fiscal year, so from March to March, full year financials. Revenue is up 9% and profit is up 33%. So they're doing really, really well for themselves off of a year that was already good. Off of a year before that was already good. So they're kind of on a year-to-year basis are doing really well. The Nintendo Switch has now sold 55 million units lifetime. Which means it is on track to be selling, in the next few years is going to be like up there on the charts in terms of all-time consoles sold. In 2017 it sold 10 million and then 20 million for each year after that. So anyway, it's getting up there. And then I think the biggest news to come out of it all is Animal Crossing New Horizons is now confirmed officially. I think it's 12 million units in 11 days. Which is just like nonsense. It's bonkers. It's the best-selling Animal Crossing of all time. It's the fastest-selling Switch game of all time. And Pokemon. At the same time, they also announced that Pokemon Sword and Shield combined sold 17 million lifetime, and Animal Crossing did 12 million in 11 days. And Animal Crossing is not a game that is done selling. So
no, I'm guessing they've already passed Pokemon by now.
Yeah,
because this is only through April, right? Or through March.
Yeah, through March. It's the last 11 days of March, and now we're obviously a few weeks into May, and the next time that we know when Animal Crossing is done is going to be by probably mid-July.
I'd be very surprised if it hasn't already surpassed Pokemon in sales.
And I mean, I think with a lot of games, you see the peak when the game releases, and then it peters off, I think, for most AAA games. But in the case of Animal Crossing, I mean, people are still talking about it to this day on a consistent basis. If anybody is buying a Switch for the first time right now or hasn't bought Animal Crossing by now, like, they probably are. And at least certainly in the last few weeks, like, it won't be the same consistent sales, but people are going to be buying that game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's got a heck of a tail. I mean, we've seen that on social media. If you're looking on social media, you're still seeing Animal Crossing stuff all the time. I'm sure if you don't have it, you're probably unbelievably sick of it by now. I just don't see a world where they have not sold another 5 million copies since March, especially since it seemed like April was when everyone was picking it up, who hadn't picked it up launch day.
How do you take this the Switch itself selling as well as it is? I think is that something you predicted? Like, did you think the Switch was going to do as well as it did when it was announced, released, whatever it was?
So when the Switch was first announced, I had a lot of questions about how its portability was going to work. I actually have a Wii U. I'm one of like the 2 people out there that still has a Wii U. And I remember that console having it touted that you could carry your controller around and play on there, and everyone knows how that wound up going. So I had a lot of questions about that, but I figured if the portability worked, if it actually had compatibility with all of its games, and you could actually take it places and it was convenient, then it was going to do super, super well. And I think I still have issues with the battery life, but obviously the portability has been successful. Yeah. I mean, yeah, this is honestly what I was predicting with the Switch. If they could nail that portability and form factor, then it was going to be nuts. And it seems like it has been.
And I mean,
I don't know if we're really going to pass the PS2, but I bet it's going to pass the Wii.
Yeah. It's a tough one, and there's a lot of consoles that have sold so well, and I think it'll get there. Like when the Switch came out, like it sold well for a number of reasons. Obviously, the concept itself, a lot of people wanted, but Smash Bros. Ultimate, one of the best-selling games in their history. Mario Kart 8 has always sold extremely well. Breath of the Wild came out. Mario Odyssey came out. Like they had a library that was strong, and that made a lot of people purchase those things. And then now they're still doing good, right? 3 Kingdoms and Luigi's Mansion, and now obviously Animal Crossing. I think if they can keep that going, I don't see why the momentum would peter out.
Yeah, well, and they had the benefit of merging the home console market and the portable console market. I don't think it would have done as well if they were still making DS consoles, if Sony were still making, whatever, the Vita 2 or whatever it would have been. I don't think it quite would have, or maybe would have done quite as well, because that market would be split. But they have done such a good job of merging those together, where you see all the time people are like, I want this game ported to Switch just because of the convenience, There's so many people I've heard of that have bought the same game they already owned a second time on the Switch just because they can like play it in bed and stuff. Yeah, it's been crazy, and they've managed to keep a lot of that DS market where they're making these weird games that just could not exist on any other platform. They maybe haven't done quite as well as the DS and 3DS did, but a lot of those games are coming to Switch, and that's great. They've been pumping out all the Wii U exclusives that, didn't see any life on the Wii U, so they're like, I guess we're just going to bring this over to Switch. It's like having a new game for the vast majority of people. I mean, that's Mario Kart, right? The really successful Mario Kart game was actually the Wii U's Mario Kart.
So just in terms of sales here, the Switch has hit 55 million sales. The NES had 60 million. The 3DS had 75 million. I imagine it's going to surpass both of those. At some point. And then, you start looking at like the 360 is at 84 million and the PlayStation 3 for that matter. The Wii is at 100 million. So, if the Switch wants to pass the Wii, it's going to have to double its current sales. And if it wants to pass the DS, it's going to have to triple its current sales. I don't know if we're going to get to that point necessarily, but I don't know, like in 3 years, another lifetime of the Switch, I could see it doubling perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, we'll definitely see things like Animal Crossing make a big difference. There's a major casual market that's going to pick up Animal Crossing now that maybe didn't go for Smash Bros. Or Pokemon. And yeah, I imagine that is only going to help. I think the biggest thing that we should look out for with Nintendo, and the only thing that's really maybe something to watch, is how they now deal with the fact that they are releasing consoles on a schedule that is off from everyone else. So they are no longer coming out with consoles at around the same time. They've kind of, with this generation, they kind of broke the generation lines, because this, the Wii U came out in between the Wii and the Switch, but the Wii and the Switch were more like the generational lines. We'll see. We'll see if that winds up, if they just stick with the Switch longer and try and, stay with the rest of the companies. try and like last with the Switch throughout this next console generation, or if they're just gonna say screw it, we're just gonna do our own thing. They are Nintendo, so there's a very good chance they would just say screw it, we're just doing our own thing.
Yeah, and I don't see any reason why they should stick with generational lines. You have Xbox and Nintendo, Xbox and PlayStation competing with each other right now in a time where you don't want consumers spending that much money on a console. And Nintendo had their console out 3 years ago, and then whatever, the next one is going to come in 3 years from now or 5 years from now when all of this is over. So, and I mean, sure, something else might pop up, but at least if something happens, they're not competing with everybody else for the bad thing that happens. It's them alone.
That's true. And if anyone can do that, it's certainly Nintendo.
Yep.
Because graphical prowess has never been their thing, or at least hasn't been for a very long time. So I'm just thinking of like the Sega Dreamcast, which came out too early and wound up just getting pounded by the PlayStation 2 when it came out.
Right.
I think that's just maybe the one thing to watch out for, but otherwise I think the Switch is going to be wildly successful. I don't think it's going anywhere.
Yep.
For the time being.
So that's Nintendo. Keep an eye on them. They're going to have probably another strong year, and it'll be, I think when you talk about golden ages for companies like this, I think in 15 years we might be looking back at the Switch era as something, especially in terms of the profits that they've had right now. It'll be something special. So moving on, we're also going to look at another company with financials, and I'm going to let Kato get into this one, but just briefly, Capcom has recorded record high profits for their company, despite revenue being down. So revenue is down 18%, but profit is up 27%. They attribute it mostly thanks to the expansion for Monster Hunter World, which is Iceborne, and also sales of the original Monster Hunter World, Resident Evil 2, Devil May Cry 5, and a growing shift towards digital sales, essentially, a greater focus on moving away from physical sales. It is also worth noting the arcade division of their company is not suffering, but I would imagine actually suffering right now.
They're not doing great right now.
But they would be able to offset that with the game segment of their company. So that's likely the reason for the revenue and profit issues. They are actually forecasting another record year, which I'm going to now allow you to talk about.
Yeah, and I think that's the really interesting takeaway from this. I know a lot of people, when they hear financials and financial reports, they just tune out completely. And Capcom has said they are predicting for this next fiscal year, so until March of 2021, that they're going to sell 28 million units, which I want to just take a moment to kind of discuss why that's important. They are predicting more sales between now and March 2021 than they had last year, which is a heck of a prediction to make during COVID-19 anyway. But also, like you said, last year was a record year for them with Monster Hunter World and the Iceborne DLC. Resident Evil, I think 2 remake was part of that fiscal year, and 3 remake definitely was.
Yeah.
But they're predicting more sales than that, and they don't have, to my knowledge, anything actually on record on the slate for this fiscal year that's releasing. So what this means is that they're going to have to be announcing and releasing several games that are going to be huge, major, all-time sellers between now and March 2021. And I was trying to look online, trying to see, kind of speculate what these games might be. And there is a person who goes by the name Dusk Golem, who is a famed leaker of Capcom information in particular, who is rumored, so this is rumors, but they predict 4 major titles and 1 medium title between now and March 2021. And I don't know, I was just kind of wanting to speculate. Is there anything from Capcom you'd love to see in the next year? Because it seems like now is going to be the time. It is worth noting that the Dusk Golem, yes, it is a rumor, but he also has a fairly solid track record with that company. He does.
He has leaked things that have been very specific and very accurate. So it is fair to say that we can trust that. When it comes to Capcom, I don't know. Like I do look forward to seeing how Monster Hunter evolves over the next while, because I think there is some longevity in that game. Seeing how well Iceborne did, especially, like, they put a lot of work into that. It really revolutionized what they were doing with that game, and I think if they can replicate that, I imagine there's a lot of success there. And I haven't played a lot of Devil May Cry games, but I've played like one, and I had a good time with it. Now I still want to play the latest one, but if they can do something with that as well, I think there's a lot of success there. But yeah, certainly. I mean, I think there's opportunities.
Yeah, Monster Hunter World DLC, it seems like that's going to definitely be a thing. They haven't said anything, but I'd be extremely surprised after they just sold 15.5 million units of Monster Hunter World. For them to not have another expansion would be crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're at a point where they're going to want to release a full new game. So I think DLC is probably a no-brainer there.
And in a game like Monster Hunter, like you can, there's so much room for introducing new things or playing with the lore or whatever it is. Like a DLC just fits for that kind of game with people who want to play it a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Those can absolutely be living games with new monsters, new environments, new weapons. Anything like that. I've heard mixed things online about whether or not we're going to see Resident Evil. I guess most people think it's going to come this year, but in what form is kind of up for debate. I've heard some people say that Resident Evil 8 is absolutely going to be announced and released holiday season. I've heard other people say there's absolutely no way it's coming out this year, and it's not going to be till at least 2021, like end of 2021. Same thing for 4 Remake.
Yeah.
So
my impression from when I last reported on that was that nothing this year, but Resident Evil 8's next year, and then the 4 Remake the year after that.
Which I'm kind of inclined to agree with that. I think they are going to want to slow down a little bit after 3 Remake. It did really well, but not as well as 2 did. And I think they're going to want to take their time with 4. This is going to be the one they super do not want to screw up, because 4 is going to be the hardest to do a remake for, since it's the closest to the current gameplay style. And it's just their big one. 4 was their best seller. They're not going to want to screw it up. And then as far as 8 goes, I feel like, yeah, that's anyone's guess, but I kind of agree. It's probably going to be later, not sooner. So the thing I was thinking we might see, and this is just my prediction, I think we're going to see Street Fighter 6 come out this year. That's my prediction. And that's, I think, why they think they're going to sell so many units. Because Street Fighter 5, it's been, I believe, 4 years since 5 came out, which is fairly quick for them, but 5 did not have a great reception.
Yeah.
So I think having it come out sooner is probably in their best interest. And having that big fighting game community come forward for 6, that's my guess as to what one of their big titles is.
My instinct on that is, like, when it comes to predicting sales, do you know how well 5 sold? Because it wasn't received well, but I don't know if it sold well.
I've heard mixed things. I've heard that it has had quite a tail to it. It definitely did not sell well at first.
Right.
With all of the reviews about missing features, things not finished. I know it didn't sell well then, but I think it's actually picked up a little bit.
Here we go.
As they've released patches.
Yeah, we got Street Fighter 5 has shipped 4 million copies, digital downloads included. So that surpassed Street Fighter 4. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's fairly good. If they're going to release a Street Fighter 6, I think that definitely would help with their forecasts, or at least, indicate something for the forecast. I think if Street Fighter doesn't come out, I'm inclined to say that Resident Evil 8, or probably not the 4 remake based on reports, but I think 8 is likely before March 2021, because, that's when the fiscal year ends. So I don't know, I guess we'll see, but
we could definitely see something in March. I think we're definitely going to see something in February, March timeframe from them. But yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to remember when 7 came out, if that was holidays or if that was March. But
yeah,
we'll see. And then we we talked previously about a possible Dino Crisis remake, but I've heard rumors that that's actually been canceled internally. So we may not wind up seeing that. And I don't think that would necessarily be the big seller that they're looking for anyway. Like, that might be a medium level, or even, even 3 to 4 million copies would be pretty high success for something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Personally, I would love to see an Ace Attorney game. It's past time for it, and that's certainly not going to be one of their big sellers, but I'd love to see Ace Attorney 7.
I don't see why not. I mean,
those.
Ace Attorney has had a tail, right? Like, if you talk about the number of people that knew about it when it was coming out, and now the trilogy came out on the Switch and all that stuff, like, I think it's picked up a lot of traction now that if they announce something, I think it would probably do better than anything they've done before.
Yeah, and they do tend to get more sales with, with discounts and with, like DLC with new releases, the trilogy packs that they've had. I doubt that would be something that would sell millions of copies first year. I doubt their predictions for this fiscal year are based on that. But it's certainly possible if they're making a medium-sized title. It's very possible that Ace Attorney 7 would be that. Especially because they kind of finished their last trilogy with 6, so this would be kind of going into a new story. I don't know, maybe that's wishful thinking, but I'd love to see what they could do on the Switch with it.
Yeah, for sure. Now, before we get into what we were playing, I haven't seen the articles, but can you tell me about what's happening with Tony Hawk?
Yeah, so they just announced earlier today there was a stream as part of Summer Game Fest, apparently, which I didn't even realize there was going to be a stream, and I signed up for notifications and did not get email notifications.
The website is now updated to have a calendar, so if you go to summergamefest.com, there's a whole list of things that are happening as a part of their festival.
Yes, and I do believe they've said there's going to be a stream, I think tomorrow, which would be the 13th, but I could be wrong about that. I don't have it up, unfortunately, right now. But yeah, pretty soon they're going to reveal some new game. But anyway, yeah, they did announce that they're doing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, which is apparently going to be a remaster of both 1 and 2. So it's going to have all the maps, all the skaters, most of the music, they said. They said they couldn't get all of the music because of licensing. But they had most of the music from the first 2 games. So it seems like it might be kind of a second attempt at what they tried with Tony Hawk Pro Skater HD, which did not go well. So hopefully this will be a little more true to it. It's actually being made by Vicarious Visions, which made the portable versions of Tony Hawk Pro Skater back in the day, which were actually very good. They were not the same game, but they were very good. So they were part of that original development. So it could go really well.
That's exciting. I mean, like on a personal level, like I had Pro Skater 3 when I was a kid, and then I moved on to Underground and Underground 2. So like my experience of the game is a little later, but I think I've actually played a lot of skateboarding games. I don't know what it is, but like Skates and Ollie Ollie and the Tony Hawk games, like I'm all over the skateboard games for some reason. There's a game on my phone called True Skate. If any of you are listening, you're interested in like a skateboarding game on your phone, it's called True Skate. I've been playing this game since 2012. Like almost like at least once a week when I have nothing to do, I whip open the phone and I just play some True Skate. Anyway, so for whatever reason I'm all over that, even though I've never been a skater and I've had like no real world interest in skateboarding. But so certainly I think the arcade skating game is there's always so much nostalgia for that and opportunity for that, and it's unfortunate that the last game went the way that it did, but if they can pull off these remasters, then I think there's a lot of success there.
Yeah, I'm really hopeful. It seems like they should be able to bring that back, and skateboarding itself has been kind of coming back a little bit. It seems like now's a good time for it, and yeah, hopefully we get to recapture a little bit of that, because those games were fantastic. It's a bummer they're not doing 3 right now, because 3 was like one of the best. But 1 and 2 were very good, so it's, and they're coming as a pack. There's apparently going to be some kind of meta over game. They've talked about being very true to the original games, but there is going to be something where when you unlock content in one of the games, you get some of that content going to the other one. So we'll see what that is. They haven't really gone into detail about what that's going to look like.
And when it comes to those older games too, like if they are these separate games or are they putting it into one?
It is one pack.
Okay.
You get Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1+2 is what it's being called.
I was gonna say there's a lot of opportunity there for with these older games. They're not necessarily the 60-hour narrative experiences. You can shove them into one thing and have them overlap and whatnot because you have the technology now.
Right. So I'm guessing there's going to be some kind of online functionality. I mean, They have said there's going to be online multiplayer.
Perfect.
Probably you unlock boards or skaters that transfer between games, something like that.
Yeah, awesome.
But they seem to want to stay very true to the original game's physics, which is one of the things HD really borked. So hopefully they'll succeed.
And you know what I will say too is we got this news. I want to hear about a new Skate game. I don't know if there's anything there, but I played the heck out of Skate 3. I have hundreds of hours in that game. I miss it.
Skate 4. I was on Twitter this morning and already saw people photoshopping the announcement so that they just have Skate and 4. So EA is gonna be like, hey, we want in on this. You're doing skateboarding again. We want to do skateboarding again.
There you go.
We'll see, but that is, I believe it's September 4th is when that comes out.
Awesome.
So it'll be this year.
Very cool. All right, well, why don't you tell me what games have you been playing this week?
Yeah, not as much as last week, but I'm still plugging away at Persona 4 or Persona 5 Royal, just slowly going through that. And I picked up Uncharted 4, so we're going to try and start that sometime soon. And yeah, I think that's about it. Animal Crossing. I'm still playing Animal Crossing pretty much daily.
So there you go. And I mean, those are games that Animal Crossing and Persona are games that you're going to be on for a while. So you kind of have to, at least with Animal Crossing, it's you can hop on for half an hour and then you're good. But there's not necessarily an end. You're kind of just done when you're ready to be done. But,
right.
And that happened for me.
Falling off you were done.
I can't say I'm definitively done, but I haven't played the game in 2 weeks, so it's kind of hard to be yeah, I'm still playing the game. I would like to, it's just I either forget or whatever it is. I don't have that drive necessarily to go play it, but I am glad that we have it because I get to stay in touch with what Shelby's doing and watching this world kind of evolve and stay in the conversation at least and understand what people are talking about on Twitter and whatnot. So
yeah, I'm kind of starting to trail off on it. I missed a few days this week, and I don't know. I'm still gonna keep going for a while, but I think I might be kind of petering out with it. I did get to spend actually a little bit of time right before this podcast playing Mega Man Battle Network, which I did an episode of Video Game of the Day on earlier this week, and so I've been thinking about it all week and just being oh, I want to play those games again because I love the Battle Network games. So I got to play 30 minutes of the first one again. And I might play that on the side of Persona 5. We'll see.
Very cool. Me personally, I ventured into a new game, which is very dangerous. I've started with Legends of Runeterra, which is the Riot card game. I played Hearthstone every day for 2 years straight. So venturing into the card game genre is I'm trying to distance myself a little bit and just be take it easy. But, there's a lot to like about that game. I'm really enjoying it. I think, Hearthstone, it had two major pitfalls, for me at least. It was the RNG. There was Hearthstone is very much roll the dice and see what happens. And in many cases, it was a lot of fun. But in many cases, if you're trying to play competitively or if you're just trying to have a strategic brain about the game, the RNG is just decimates you. So that is a really nice reprieve with Legends of Runeterra. There's basically none of that. It's all strategic. And then the other pitfall was money, right? I was playing free to play and they wanted money, $60 from you every couple of months, and it was a little redonkulous. I don't know if that's the case with Legends of Runeterra yet. I've heard that it's better, but I haven't had the personal longevity with it to know. I've had a single deck that I've just been wiping everybody with, and that's all I've done. So we'll see what happens when I actually play it some more, but hopefully it doesn't fall into that trap. I don't know. Do you ever play card games? I feel like I've asked you this before.
I actually don't. It's one of the things I talked about doing Battle Network again, because it's a card game, but it's one of the very few that I like. I did spend some time with Hearthstone, a very short amount of time. But like you said, those microtransactions are brutal, and I was never into that. Which I know Legends of Runeterra, they did say they wanted to be better about that. And so hopefully, fingers crossed, they will be.
And I'm trying... Okay, this might be totally off base, so for anybody listening, don't take me at my word on this. But now that I'm thinking about the store in Legends of Runeterra, I think it's only cosmetic. I think you might only get things through playing the game there. I don't actually know. I might have to check that, but...
I know they did say they aren't doing random card packs. Okay, that was one thing they were very clear about, like, we're not doing that.
There you go.
But I don't know if that means, like, you will eventually buy cards themselves, like...
Yeah, so they
but even still, the meta is going to be better, right?
They have a feature called wild cards where you can basically, like, get any card you want, and it's not like you're spending 200 coins to get it. You're like, you have a wild card, and then you can use that on anything. So I think you can purchase those wild cards so that you can buy whatever you want.
Is it free to play, or did you pay for it? Okay, it's free to play. So they must have some kind of monetization plan, but hopefully it's just not as brutal.
And they did a whole lot more in terms of cosmetics as well. Like, there's a lot more things you can customize in that game that gets shown off to the other player, as opposed to Hearthstone, which is like the card back, and nobody even really cares about that. So, the first time I came across somebody who didn't have the default everything, I was like, oh, fancy boy over here. So, we'll see how it goes over the next few weeks anyway. But so I've been playing that.
It does always surprise me how those games are able to fully monetize based on cosmetic items, because it sounds like you're the same way. We're kind of like, I don't think I need that. It's kind of cool having the card deck background, but I don't need that. But some people have these just incredibly fancy layouts, and
I get it. If it's the only game you're playing for a really long time and you've sunk like hundreds of hours into it. Like, if I ever get to that point, sometimes I'm like, okay, here's $5 and I'll have a fancy thing, but
sure.
Yeah, for the most part, I'm like, let's just take it easy here. Anyway, so I've been playing Legends of Runeterra just the past couple of days. I hit this breaking point with XCOM Chimera Squad. I was playing this game. I was having a great time. I love XCOM. It's a nice, tight experience. It's awesome. And then, like, I was decimating. All the aliens were going. The missions were going flawless. It was fine. And then I hit the boss battle at the end of... So, like, in Chimera Squad, you have, like, 3 branches that you can go down. I chose one of the branches randomly. And then at the end of that branch, you have a boss battle, and then you move on to another branch. At the end of this one, I'm just getting decimated. I went from, like, everything is okay to, like, I cannot complete this mission. And in Chimera Squad, it's not like XCOM where your soldiers die and then you keep going. If you fail the mission with all of your squad mates dying, then you have to restart. And so I keep restarting and restarting and restarting this level, and I literally just can't beat it. They overwhelm you like crazy. So I don't know what to do, because I don't want to start the game back from the beginning. I might be able to, like, reconfigure my soldiers from, like, right before the encounter starting. And I haven't tried that yet, but even, it's so overwhelming, I have no idea where I would even start. So I might be at a point right now where I have to put Chimera Squad down and then, like, come back to it later. Either maybe it gets balanced, or I just follow a guide in terms of, like, the best thing to do with your soldiers or whatever it is. But, like, the difficulty ramped up, like, in a single mission. It was insane. I don't know what happened. It saddens me.
Is there any kind of grinding of any kind that you can do in that game?
No. That's the thing. And it's like the final mission comes, and then, like, you might have options for other things to do, but that makes the final mission harder. So it's kind of like, once you're ready to go, then go,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, some of those games, I mean, a lot of those games have that, right? I remember Fire Emblem games where it's like, okay, I'm at this battle, so now I'm just dead. It's always a bummer. Yeah, it's a bummer when you feel like, well, I've just hit this wall and there's just nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, so we'll see how it plays out.
That's a bummer.
It might end up being that I put that down for now. I start another game. Actually, so Final Fantasy IX is coming to the Xbox Game Pass soon, and I want to play that. And because I played 10, and that was my thing when I was younger, and I haven't played 9, but I've heard good things. So I almost feel like I want to pivot to that.
9 is my personal favorite of the PlayStation trilogy. It's the biggest, like, throwback to the originals. Kind of has not really a job system, but a pseudo job system, and it I think it's really good. Yeah, you'll have to let us know what you think.
There you go. And then I kind of like plugging away with Hitman 2. That's my Animal Crossing. I'm playing like a little bit here and there to knock off some of the challenges, and we'll see how far I get. Anyway, anything else you want to mention before we take it away?
No, it's going to be a good week. I guess we're going to have some Summer Game Fest reveals, so check calendars for that. Yeah, we'll have some stuff to talk about next week.
Yeah, next week we'll cover all the biggest things once again. If you enjoyed the show, please feel free to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or whatever other podcast host of your choice. It really does help out the show a whole lot. Kato, where can people find you other than this podcast?
I have a flash briefing on Alexa devices, video game of the day. Please give it a look. We're in all English-speaking regions. So go enable that. Listen to my voice tell you about random video games every day.
And where can they find the link?
Yeah, well, we're also on videogameoftheday.com. That's my domain, which everyone's always like, wow, how did you get that domain? But we are at videogameoftheday.com. And that has a link to the Amazon store, because I can't just read off the Amazon store link. It would be nonsense and ridiculous. But you can do a search on Amazon for it. You'll find it. Yeah, and then I'm on Twitter at VG_of the day. I want to start doing some Twitch streaming of the games we talk about pretty soon. So more news on that there. And I'll probably be posting on videogameoftheday.com about it also.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And if you'd like to follow up more with The Observer itself, we do daily video game news updates. It's either on the podcast host that you're listening to right now, or if you're looking on YouTube, just search the Gaming Observer on podcasts or on the Alexa flash briefings search in the app and all that. Yeah, you'll find it. That's going to be all for today. Thank you very much for joining us, and until next week, happy gaming, everyone.
Happy gaming, everyone.